Okay, so when we graph a line, we want to make sure, first of all, that the equation is in slope-intercept form, is what they call it. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. It has to be in this form in order to graph what we're getting ready to graph. It must be in slope-intercept, and if it is, that means I have a slope, which is the number in front of the x, which would be that. That would be my slope. And I have a y-intercept, which is the number, b is your y-intercept. That's your number at the end. That is your y-intercept. The very first point that you graph is the y-intercept. So in order to graph the y-intercept, it has to be on the y-axis. That's the y-axis. Intercept means it crosses through. I don't know why I got a point up there. Let me get rid of that. Intercept means it passes through that y-axis. So my y-intercept is -4. The sign in front goes with the number. It's a -4. So on the y-axis, I go to -4 and I put a dot. Everybody needs to do that. Now, the cool thing about the slope is rise over run. I know y'all have heard of that before, rise over run. But I teach kids that if it's positive, it's rise, and if it's negative, it's fall. And you always run to the right. Now, there's going to be instances where you'll run left because you run out of graph. We'll handle that when we get to it. But for the most part, we're always running right. That will keep you from making a mistake. So since I have a negative slope from this point, I'm going to fall 2, and I'm going to run to the right 3. So from that point, I'm going to fall 2, run to the right 3, and my next dot goes right there. All you need for a line is 2 points. If you have 2 points, you've got enough. Now I can draw. I don't have a ruler, but you do, so you guys need to use it. Now I'm going to draw my line, and here's the next thing kids often do. They draw it between the 2 points, and they stop. That's a segment. That's not a line. You must extend it past the dot and put an arrow. Extend past the dot and put an arrow. Very neat work. If I had a whole number for a slope, let's look at that. You're going to use your same little graph. And let's say I have y equals 2x plus 2. Where does my first dot go? 2 on the which axis? Very good. So go to 2 and put a dot there. Now remember, I told you slope is rise over run. That means it's a fraction. Rise over run is a fraction. So when you go to do your slope here, you don't have a fraction, but in fact you do. I can make this into a fraction. How? Put it over 1. So if I put it over 1, I now have a rise over run. So from this dot, I'm going to rise, because it's positive, I'm going to rise 2, and I'm going to run 1. And then I'll have my second dot. And this line will look something like that, hopefully neater. Yours will be neater because you have rulers. Does everybody understand what we are doing? Okay, it's really important that you do. So with that being said, you are getting ready to get this paper. You're getting ready to get this paper, and this paper's got some really good information. It tells you slope-intercept form. It shows you slope-intercept form. And it shows you over here, is this slope-intercept form?
No.
It's not. Because slope-intercept form has to say y equals mx plus b. mx plus b. That's the same thing. If you say, well, that's not a plus b. No, it is. Y equals mx plus a negative 1. There's your plus b. In middle school, we did the plus and negative. In high school, we don't. We just put minus. So it is slope-intercept form. But this over here is not slope-intercept form, so you can't graph it until you fix it. So we have to fix this, and in order to fix this and put it in slope-intercept form, I need to subtract 2x from both sides, and I get y equals negative 2x plus 7. Now it's in slope-intercept form, and I can graph it. Are you guys with me? And that's what they did right here. All right? So this has good information on here for you. I'm going to give it to you here in a second. And then the page behind this is an excellent page because it has one step at a time. So let me get this out to you so you can see it. Here you go, man.
Okay, but why? Wait, for me to go talk to my, then to say that.
Everybody got one?
So like, I read the offer.
Okay, if you will look
And then he read
at the back of that page, it shows you step 1. The y-intercept is negative 1. So we plot a point at negative 1 on the y-axis to begin. Step 2. Next, the slope is 2, which means a rise of 2 and a run of 1. So we'll move up 2 and right 1 to plot the next point. Again, all you need are 2 points. Once you have your 2 points, you can then draw your line. Then they have an example 2, an example 3, and an example 4 for you to look at. Now, something about me with graphing lines, that's the back of the front page. Use your ruler. Do not hand me a paper that's got crooked lines or I will give you a 0. Lines are important. Also, extend your lines through the points and put arrows on the ends, as I've already explained. So what I want you to do is I don't want you just to take off and start graphing. I want you to go to number 1 and I want you to graph that line. But it also wants you to tell them what is the slope and what is the y-intercept. And we will go over that together. Go ahead and get that one done. We're going to go over a couple of them together before I let you go on your own. Okay, so that number 1, it wanted to know what the slope was. What'd you put for slope? 2 or 2 over 1. And the slope is actually 2. But when we go to graph it, we put 2 over 1. What is your y-intercept? 1. What is a y-intercept again?
Where you start.
Where you start, definitely. It's where you start. It's a y-intercept is always also called the initial value. So when we get back into more higher level stuff, they're going to start referring to it as the initial value. Just like Savannah said, it's where you start, and that's very important. So my y-intercept is 1. What is wrong with this thing? And my slope is 2. And in order to graph my slope, I need to put a 2 over 1. So I have a y-intercept of 1. I rise 2 and I run 1. And I use my ruler in order to draw my line. And I have my line. Now, I want you to look at problem number 17. Skip on over to problem 17. And I want you to graph problem 17. Is 17 in slope-intercept form?
No.
It is not. So you got to fix it before you do anything. Okay, so number 17 is definitely not in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form, I need to solve for y. So in order to solve for y, I have to add 6x. That gives me a 3y equals 6x. Always put your x's after the equal sign. Minus 9. And then I have to divide by 3. Again, going back to when we learned how to solve equations. If you never got that, you can't do this. And you get y equals 2x minus 3. Now I can graph it. Negative 3 is my y-intercept. I'm going to rise 2 and run 1. And I'm going to draw my line and put arrows on the ends. Does everybody understand what I did? Is everybody good? Yeah? Okay. You are going to complete this worksheet, but what I also want you to do is I want you to compare your graphs with your neighbors. I don't care which neighbor. Compare your graphs with your neighbor. I'm not collecting this. This is not a grade. This is for you to have practice, so when I give you an assignment I'm going to grade tomorrow, you will know what you're doing, and you can do a good grade. So you must compare your answers with your neighbor. Any questions? And I've got the worksheet up in your Google Classroom. I'll release that in a minute, and I'm putting this video there as well.